This should be shown in all schools. Uh-oh, what is it?
Some people say that mass immigration into the United States can help reduce world poverty. Is that true? Well, no, it's not. And let me show you why. This gumball represents the 1 million legal immigrants that the United States has taken every year on average since 1990.
That's not a lot.
Who in the world deserves our humanitarian compassion? The World Bank has one measure of the desperately poor of the world. They make less than $2 a day.
That's bad.
And how many people make less than $2 a day in the world? We'll start with Africa.
20%.
In Africa alone, there are 650 million people who make less than $2 a day. 650 million. And in India, another 890 million people, desperately poor. China adds another 480 million people, making less than $2 a day. And unfortunately, the rest of Asia has a heartbreaking 810 million people.
It's more than that.
Who the World Bank
Holy
says
fuck.
make less than $2 a day. And finally, there's 105 million.
There's Twitch streamers that also make less than $2 a day.
All told, the World Bank says there are 3 billion people in the world. 3 billion people who are desperately poor, making less than $2
almost
a day.
half.
That's 3,000 gumballs. And every year, we take 1 million and suggest that we've somehow made a humanitarian difference. Of course, we don't pull our immigrants from these desperately poor populations, do we?
No, not really.
These people are too poor, too sick, too disconnected to make it here as immigrants.
Well, the last time that we brought people over like that was a bad time, and we had a big problem with that. So, yeah.
We tend to pull our immigrants out of the better off poor of the world.
That was a mistake.
How many people in the world live in countries that have average incomes lower than that of Mexico?
Yep.
And the World Bank tells us that that number is these 3 billion plus another 2.6 billion people.
That's a lot of people.
5.6 billion people.
That's an assload of people.
Who live in countries with average incomes below that of Mexico.
Damn.
That's 5,600.
Man, Mexico's pretty good, huh? Maybe I go to Mexico.
So what is it that the elites are telling us? They're telling us that when we take this 1 million immigrants, that we somehow or another are tackling world poverty. And we have to do it regardless of the effect on our unemployed, the working poor, the most vulnerable members of our society, regardless of the effect on our natural resources.
Everybody starts talking?
Even if we went by the most radical proposals in Washington, which are to actually double.
This is why we have Mr. Beast now. He's going to take care of all these marbles.
Immigration to 2 million a year.
That's right.
Which would totally overwhelm our physical, natural, and social infrastructures. We couldn't make a noticeable difference.
Yeah.
And we may be really hurting the impoverished people of the world because the million that we do take,
they're the best ones,
are among the most energetic, often the better educated, certainly the most dissatisfied people that if they did not immigrate would be the agents for change to improve the lot of all the people in these countries.
Yeah.
The true heroes in the global humanitarian field are the people in these countries.
You know who's somebody I really respect about this is Akon. You know, Akon is a guy, he came from Africa, and he's really done a lot of work to improve and give back to Africa himself. That guy is a G.
Who have the wherewithal to immigrate to another country, but instead stay in their countries to apply their skills to help their fellow countrymen. Unfortunately, our immigration system tends to entice these very type of people to abandon their countrymen. The impossibility of making even a dent is actually worse than it looks here. Because last year, when we took 1 million immigrants, these countries added, births over deaths, 80 million more people into the impoverished population.
So at the
and this year, Congress is bringing in 1 million legal immigrants.
You know what this reminds me of?
According to the United Nations,
the national debt.
These countries
are
expected to add another
That's
80
crazy.
million people. And next year, you can be quite sure that Congress, unless stopped by the American voters, will bring in another 1 million immigrants. And these countries, unfortunately, will be adding another 80 million people.
Where are they going to go?
Nations. We could take 5 million a year, but we'd never get ahead of what's happening in these countries.
Man, I could make so many bad jokes about those marbles that fell on the floor.
Don't you see? Immigration can never be an effective or significant way to deal with the suffering people of the world. They have to be helped where they live. 99.9%
like Mr. Beast.
of them will never be able to immigrate to a rich country. There's no hope for that. They have to bloom where they're planted. The only place that 99.9% of these people can be helped is where they live.
Yeah, I mean, I think that really, I mean, you're starting to see, I mean, that there's like a lot of types of technology that people have created for like really, really poor areas. And I think that that technology is incredible, right? Like water filtration, for an example, and other stuff like that. So I really hope that USAID got cut, though. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, like, helping people in Africa is nice, but helping people in America is better, in my opinion, because I'm a fucking American, right? And so, like, I can see this and think it's a tragedy, and I think that, you know, if somebody wants to support this themselves, it's okay. But when you take people's money by threat of force with taxes, I think that you enter in an ethical obligation to allocate that tax money in a way that is most beneficial for that person in the most honest and authentic way possible. Now, that's just me. That's the way that I see it. And so, obviously, everybody's going to look at it differently, but that's my viewpoint. That's how I see it. Let's pay billionaires more? Well, I'm sure if the billionaires didn't make this money, I mean, people have been poor forever, right? I mean, there's always been poor fucking people. And you can't blame everything on billionaires, right? This isn't the reason we promote immigration. It's to maintain our population level above replacement so we don't face a population crisis like Europe and Asia. I think that the way that you deal with the population crisis is you give people more credits and more reasons to have kids. I think that's the way you solve the problem. Because people right now don't have reasons to have kids. And the amount of incentives that they have are like this. Like, they give you this as an incentive to have a kid, and this is the cost of actually having a kid. And they say, wait, why aren't you guys having kids? We gave you 6 marbles. Well, that's not enough. Yeah, it's overkill. Yeah, exactly. And so that's the real problem. And so population, no, I don't believe that at all. Like, you want to have population, you know, you want to have more people have kids, create cultures and create, you know, a culture where people want to have kids. That's what I would say. Yeah, absolutely. The incentives don't work. It's the culture problem. No, I think that the incentives in a lot of cases do work. I know that for a lot of people, and it doesn't work with everybody. You're right. It does not work with everybody. And there are cultural differences, and cultural differences play a factor. But the fact is that China had like the one-child policy for fucking ever. That's a big deal. That's not hard-coded into the U.S., though, right? It's not. And so take back child labor laws and put them to work. Yeah, exactly, right? And so that's actually a really good idea. So if we got rid of child labor laws and then we made kids work in the mines again, and then the parents could take the kids' money, then everybody would have way more kids because they could turn those kids into slaves. Yeah, that's a good idea. Has anybody ever thought of this before? This must be a good idea, right? Oh, that's right. Samsung did. Yes, with the cobalt mines. Never mind. Okay, no, that's true. So we already had this happen. See, this is another way that private industry leads government.